This is Heinrich from the Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns podcast. You're listening to one of the shows on the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can find all the other shows at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, President of the Non-Threat Assassination Squad, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. This is a podcast about the men and women who compete in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, I've been attending IDPA matches since 2011, and over the years, I've met some really amazing people thanks to this sport. Ignore all the colorful jerseys and the sponsor logos, and underneath, you're going to find everyday men and women who volunteer their time and their effort and spend their hard-earned dollars on travel, match fees, and gear to make this sport great. And today you're going to meet another one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor. I want to take a minute to talk about our good friends at Cook's Holsters. When I first got started in concealed carry, I really didn't know what I was doing. I picked out one of those cheap prophylactic holsters that collapse when you draw the gun out. Yeah, I know, I was one of those guys. But then I started learning more. I took some classes, I read books, I watched videos, and I found out about the advantage of Kydex. And that's how I discovered Cook's Holsters. What makes Cook's Holsters special? Well, they're an American success story for one thing. Born in the founder's basement, Cook's Holsters grew so much that the owner left his job, his full-time job, to make holsters full-time, and then expanded and hired people because he had to have help to fill orders and meet demand. They even sell printed Kydex to many of the other holster makers, and their subsidiary business, Cook's Molds, actually makes the molds that many of those other holster makers use to make their products. Custom molded to fit your firearm, Cook's Holsters are available for carry, for range work, for competition. I use them every day. Check them out at cooksholsters.com. Use the promo code ARMEDPODCAST and save 15% off your order at cooksholsters.com. Our special guest today, joining us by phone, is In-N-Out Burger's biggest fan, Ben Gutierrez from Los Lunas, New Mexico. Ben, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Lloyd. I appreciate the opportunity today.
I mentioned the In-N-Out thing because I noticed that your profile picture on IDPA.com.
Huge fan of In-N-Out. So whenever we're in Vegas, Arizona, anywhere where there's an In-N-Out in California, we stop in there. Even Texas now has them. So
oh yeah,
my wife's a big fan of them, and I dig their fries and their the way they do business. They're really nice folks and good Christian folks that own that company.
Oh yeah, gonna have to go hit them up for a sponsorship now, I guess.
I guess, right?
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what you do for a living there in Los Lunas.
So I actually work just north here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I work for U.S. Bank. I'm a branch manager there, and been in the financial world for about 23 years now, and really enjoy helping people out and working on their finances and hopefully working towards their future goals and dreams.
So where does are you a native of New Mexico?
I am born and raised here in New Mexico. My family's been longtime ranchers and in Santa Rosa, New Mexico, and all of us kind of joined up here in Albuquerque area. Most of my grandparents, everybody retired here in Albuquerque, and a lot of the folks worked for Sandia Labs, national labs out here. So I got a lot of folks in government work and working on nuclear stuff and all that crazy fun stuff.
So growing up in a ranch family, interest in guns kind of came naturally as a kid, or is that something that you picked up later in life?
A little bit later in life, actually. I used to go out on hunts with my dad's side of the family, but my mom was scared that it was going to be like the Christmas Story, like I'd shoot my eye out with a BB gun. So she was a little bit more guarded when it came to firearms. We used them when we needed to out on the ranch, but a little target practice here or there, but nothing too serious. And it came later in life that I got into shooting.
So how did you how did you get introduced to handguns, and then how did you find competitive shooting?
Well, kind of out of necessity. Unfortunately, my wife and I built a house down in Los Lunas, New Mexico, and she started working from home, and we had heard of a couple of home invasions in the area, and it kind of scared us. And I said, I have my firearm, and I just bought it. It was one of those things. I bought it and wanted to have it for protection, but I really didn't practice or anything with it. I've gone out the range a couple times and shot in the Mesa type shooting, but nothing too serious, no training or anything. And I said, babe, you're at home alone. I'm at work. I really think you should learn how to shoot and defend yourself if you ever need to. And so we did a little research, found there was a local gun range that just started about 6 months earlier, and we signed up for it, met some good folks there, went out and shot some 22 steel challenge matches with folks. Everybody's lending us their guns and such, and took a CCW class to get our concealed carry, and started taking some more tactical classes. And before you knew it, people said, "Hey, this little box here is a timer, and we use that in competition." And I said, "Well, that sounds pretty simple." And then first couple matches we went out to shoot, when that buzzer went off, your mind kind of turned off. So it was a new experience for both of us, but we really enjoyed the folks that we were, shooting with, and didn't get really too serious at all into the competition part of it, but just enjoyed the company of folks.
Right. How long before you decided to get a little more serious and try your hand at a sanctioned match?
Well, our range down here in Los Lunas is pretty small, but we decided that instead of just going out and just shooting at dirt, we would get a little bit more serious and look into maybe one of the action sports. And we came across IDPA, and we liked the fact that it had a lot of the spirit of the game was more of the tactical and defensive shooting type tactics. So we became a match or a club, so we could hold matches, local matches. And 2 months after we became a club, I became an SO and SO'd my first state match. So kind of trial by fire there, getting introduced to the sport.
Wow, that's jump in with both feet. So what do you remember of that first sanctioned match, that first state match, both as a competitor and as an SO? What do you remember of that day?
Well, I'll be honest with you, the first number one thing was in my mind was not to DQ. I just wanted to make sure that I got through that match, and I shot it, decently. I was a marksman at the time, just classified the day before the actual match, so everything was kind of rush, and they needed the help. And luckily, I had a good buddy of mine that still a buddy of mine is Brian Morris out of Texas. There, he was my CSO for the match, and pretty much taught me everything I know about working a stage.
And you've gone so far now as to become match director for a sanctioned match. You're the match director for the New Mexico Scorcher. How did that come about? And give us a little history of the match. And you've got one coming up this year. Tell us a little about it and what shooters can expect.
Well, the New Mexico Scorcher is just what it is. It started 5 years ago. This is our fifth one, and a gentleman by the name of Jay Kohler actually came up with the idea to do the Scorcher in July, which in New Mexico it's pretty warm in July, so the name really fit the match. But Jay came up with it, put it together, and then he tutored some of us, and Matt Amdor from the Del Norte Gun Club in Rio Rancho, where we hold the event. He took over as match director after that, and kind of kept me under his wing, and I helped him out as an assistant match director. And last year was my first year doing the match directing, and this year again, and we've got a great crew. I'll tell you, the Scorcher is one of those matches that it may be in small town Rio Rancho, New Mexico, but we've got folks that come from 11 different states to come shoot the match, and it's one of those matches that we're very creative in our setups. We're very complimentary to traveling shooters, and we just like to have fun. We like to have people come out and shoot, and we have no problem selling out every year for this event because, we're an inviting club and we like to have fun. It's not always about winning. It's about camaraderie and getting together, and I think that we've really fostered that there at the Scorcher.
What is it like putting this match together? What goes into what's the preparation like? How early are you preparing? Who's doing the stages? And how are you dealing with the weather in New Mexico this time of year? Like you said, it's pretty warm. The last minute prep, I know the week before a major match is always, run and hurry, get as much done as you possibly can at the last minute. I imagine the heat plays a big factor for the SOs and the staff as much as it does the shooters, probably more because you put in a lot more prep.
Oh, absolutely. Hydration. That's the name of the game when we're running a match in the heat out here in New Mexico. And we do a good job of making sure our medics are out there during the match, making sure everybody's drinking plenty of water, not only during the match, but before the match. We typically send out some communications 2 weeks before, just getting people prepared for the weather and to get hydrated and make sure that they're ready for it when they get out. Have plenty of shade and stuff provided for folks, but I'll tell you what, my volunteers, they're really good. There's not a lot of last minute when it comes to this match because the minute the match is over the prior year, we're working on the next year and we're putting together things, getting stages together. It's not really a match director running it all. It's really a group effort, and they make it pretty seamless for me as we get closer to the match.
Do you do the stage design?
Usually myself and the assistant match directors do it. This year I've got about 7 of the 12 stages I designed, and then Matt Amdor designed the other ones, and they're all fun. Challenging, but not impossible. We kind of tease Walt Prue about them because we challenge him every year to try and find something wrong with them, which is always a fun game with Walt.
And how has that worked out?
Pretty good so far. Usually we have a little powwow after the match, and he gives me that Walt look, and he kind of strokes his mustache and says, "Well, I only found one thing wrong this year," and then he'll let me know, and I'm like, "All right, you won't see that again next year." So we have a good time giving each other a hard time, especially now he's got that beautiful setup he has up in Grand Junction.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now you can critique his work.
just a little bit.
All right, so getting back to your shooting career, what's your favorite division? What gun are you competing with most often?
Well, I kind of stuck to the basics with stock service pistol. I just enjoyed doing that. I kind of tease the others that say that ESP and some of these other carry optics is the cheater divisions, but they're all fun to shoot. But I really enjoy the stock service pistol, and I'm currently shooting a Walter PPQ. Enjoy that gun. Fits my hand real well. It's an accurate gun. Shoots straight, and I've enjoyed it. I've made myself a couple bumps up to expert, so next is master. I don't know if that's in the cards, but I'm working towards it.
Well, tell us about a match that you have competed in recently or over the last several years that sticks out in your mind. A story from your experience as a shooter. Something fun or bizarre or really difficult that you saw at someone else's match that sticks in your mind.
Well, gosh, I got to go back, Lloyd. I've got to talk about the Nationals out in Crescent a few years back, where we had a stage that you ran up some stairs and kind of thrust yourself on a little roller coaster ride, and you went down the rails on a little cart. That had to have been one of the funnest stages I've ever shot. When Brian Ehrler said, "Hey, we're going to be doing a roller coaster stage," he really meant it.
Oh yeah.
But I'll tell you that the thing that I remember the most is watching a gentleman, Mr. Bauckham, get up there with his motorized wheelchair, raise himself up, drop himself down on that cart, and go down there with a heart of gold and shoot zeros all the way down and laughing and having a great time. I mean, Trevor was just an inspiration to all of us when he did that. And I told my wife, I said, you know what, the guy's got heart. So I'll always remember that match. That was fun. I was an SO at that match, and met a lot of good people, a lot of good friends that I have today, and it just stuff like that. When you're thinking outside the box and just having fun with shooting, that's what it's all about.
Yep. They held the Lone Star a couple of weeks after that match, and they basically reused the stages, but just moved some targets around and made them a little less complicated, so you didn't have quite as much to reset. But they left they left that in place, and yeah, that was an interesting ride. I before I knew it was over, and I don't know whether I hit anything.
That was a cool match. That was second nationals my wife and I had worked, and I'll tell you what, we enjoyed it, and we like volunteering and keeping things going, and that was the year we kind of started our tradition at sanctioned matches, which is a little different, but kind of fun at the same time. Our number one thing is we don't want DQ, and so after the match, we have a little celebration. We call it the no DQ celebration. So we find the nearest Dairy Queen after the match. We get some ice cream, and we all take a picture and kind of celebrate the fact that we had a good match.
Have you ever had to celebrate the actual DQ? You
know what? I have not. Fortunately, I have DQ'd at a local match, and I learned my lesson there, and then moved on. But I'll tell you what, I feel so bad when people travel so far and they do something that disqualifies them. But in the end, as long as you learn from the experience and you don't do it again, that's the whole point of it.
Oh yeah, yep. All right, let's play a little Pick Your Poison. You said you heard the episode with Walt. I think I ran some of these sorts of questions by him. I got the sense that early on in the show, some of the guests were getting a little complacent, and a couple of them had said, "Yeah, I've listened to all your shows, and I know what questions you're going to ask." So I thought I would mix it up with something I call Pick Your Poison. I'm going to give you a sort of some either or questions and kind of pick your brain a little bit here. You mentioned that you prefer you've kept it simple. You've stayed with SSP, and you look at sort of ESP and CO as cheater guns. But if you couldn't shoot SSP, what division would you choose?
Oh, that's easy. CDP. That's the master gun right there. 1911, 45 caliber. That's a true test to show that you can handle the power of the gun and the uniqueness of having the downloads to 8+1 in stage management. So I definitely go CDP if I wasn't shooting SSP.
Gotcha. Now we talked about the weather in New Mexico this time of year. If you had to choose, you couldn't have the perfect day. It was either going to be one extreme or the other, extremely hot or extremely cold. Which would you prefer to shoot in?
Oh, hot, definitely. Last year we shot in October in the Blue Line match here in New Mexico, and I'll tell you, with the wind chill, it was down to about 12 degrees, and I couldn't feel my trigger finger, and I said, well, you know what, I'm just going to go for broke and then run back to my chair and throw on a blanket because it was freezing. So definitely go with the heat. I can deal with that.
There's a definite trend. Everyone from the Southwest generally says they prefer the heat, and everyone from the Northeast generally prefers the cold. But every now and then somebody will surprise you, and they would prefer it the other way around. So I always like to throw that one in there just to see.
Absolutely.
You've worked nationals a couple of times. You said with your wife, you've shot the. I don't know how they do the SOs shooting, whether they do it all in one day or whether they break it up over several days. But if you're a shooter and not working the match, and you're going to nationals and they've got to 16 or 18 stages or whatever it's going to be at Worlds this year, and you don't have enough points to choose the day and you have to shoot all in one, would you do it, or would you say, yeah, I think I'll wait till next year?
Oh, I'm a guy that likes to shoot them all in one day. We've typically split it up between 2 days, but if it were up to me and not my wife, I would do it in one shot. Once I get focused and I'm in the mode of shooting and it's a match day, I like to get it done. I like to keep to my plan and hopefully that, I can finish it and not have to worry about the next day's weather being different or all those other X factors that, I didn't get enough sleep the night before and those type of things.
Right.
So I prefer to get it done in one day.
Gotcha. So keeping in along the same lines of getting going and staying warmed up and keeping going throughout the day, do you prefer, if you had a choice, would you prefer to shoot the standard stage at a sanctioned match, the first stage of the match, or the last?
That's something that Matt Amdor kind of gives me a hard time on because I'm one of those guys that likes to move when I shoot, and a lot of the standards are stand and deliver. Mm-hmm. So for me, I like to get them done and out of my mind and then work all the scenario stages, afterwards.
Gotcha.
Kind of get the jitters out.
Right. You've probably seen one of these situations in a stage where you come to a shooting position, and there's an array of targets. One of them's a steel target with an activator, and that activates a disappearing target. But there's also this paper target over here that, if you're fast enough, you could transition to that and shoot and save some time. Are you the kind of person that takes that looks at that and says, I'm willing to take that risk and see if I can do it? Or do you tend to play it safe?
Oh, go big or go home. You got to go for it. That's what differentiates the experts and the masters. Is those masters are going to go for it because they're confident, and that's a lot of times when you get to the end of a match, it's those few tenths of a second that can win it or lose it for you. And I'll give you an example. Last year at Scorcher, I finished second place to Mr. Joey Russo by 0.20 seconds. And that was the difference between a bump and a non-bump. So I'll tell you what, if I had not played it safe on one particular stage and done what you're talking about, I probably would have overtook him. But Joey would say the opposite. So,
when I get Joey on the show, I'll ask him about that.
Oh, he'll tell you. He was actually he was sweating bullets because he was like, I finished first. I'm going to get a bump. Oh, no, I can't believe it. He's like, I'm scared. And I said, well, you know what? I'm kind of thanking you now because that 0.20 saved me the bump.
Right. I don't have to move up to the bigger pool.
Yep.
Here's the question I haven't asked anybody before. You finish shooting an array of targets. You move to your next position of cover where there's a fault line. But before you get there, there is a target that's visible. It's a partial with a non-threat. Do you shoot on the move and try to save some time, or do you wait till you get to that next position and engage it flat-footed where you have a cleaner shot?
That's a good question. I mean, it just depends on the stage. If your momentum is better going towards it on the move and taking that shot, I definitely take that shot. Got to be confident in it just because you're on the move. I mean, you've practiced it. You know what you're doing. You got your sights on the target. It's just like standing still to me. So I take that shot typically because it's going to save me some time and I can keep going on to my next shooting position.
Gotcha. Shooting on the move is like you said, it's a skill that once you've got it, it makes a big difference in your game. Would you rather shoot on the move or shoot moving targets?
Oh, that's a tough question because I like to do both. So I like to shoot moving targets while I'm moving. So I'll tell you what, it's all fun, Lloyd. It really is. But it depends on them targets. Sometimes they put out some pretty some nifty setups. So sometimes you want to stand still, get a good base, and really ambush a target when you can. But if you have the opportunity and the skill set to do it, on the move is the best.
Yep. Now you talked about the skills that make the difference between, sharpshooter and expert and master. What part of your game would you say at this point is your strength? Is it the strongest part of your game? What part of your game at this point needs the most improvement?
So strengths right now have been my speed and accuracy. It's I really shoot well on the move. My stage planning, that's all kind of complementary to each other. Like we talked about a little bit before, I alluded to the stand and deliver stuff I need to work a little bit more on, so that would definitely be my opportunity. I like to, I don't know, they say I'm an ADD shooter. I like to be on the move and I can't stand still, so I definitely am working on that. And a good friend of mine, Elias Rangolis, I took his class and we definitely focused in on that, and I'm making improvements, but there's definitely always an opportunity in some part of your shooting game.
Yep. What is it about that standing flat-footed and just, shooting without any kind of movement at all that, some people, they thrive on those stages. I had a guest on early on in the show who was like, yeah, this is my chance to make or break because lots of people fall apart in their standard stages. So I try to ace these. There's others who will say, you're never going to win a match on a standard stage, but you could definitely lose it. What's your approach to a standard stage when it's not exactly what you like to shoot?
Slow and steady. I concentrate on the fundamentals, making sure that I got good trigger resets and I'm not jerking the gun around. My form is there, and I try and slow down my trigger and keep a nice, consistent cadence, and that's something I've really been working on to improve that. It's not quite there yet, but that's probably the biggest part of my game that I do work on is that slowing down and really getting the sights on the target. But I'll tell you, there's nothing like a scenario stage that gets your adrenaline going. For some reason, that's just my thing.
All right, so I'm one last fun question before the wrap up here. Early on, I got some bizarre and interesting answers to this question. I keep asking it, even though most of the time the answers are mundane. So if yours are not exciting, it's fine. Besides your gun and holster and mag carriers, the usual stuff that everybody carries in their range bag, do you have something that you take with you to a match every time? You got to have it. You make sure that it's in your bag, and why?
Oh gosh, my bag is really my wife. She packs our bags for us.
You might want to rephrase that.
My wife, she packs them all for us because she's got a list. I mean, she's very methodical about what she puts in there. But for me, I don't know what it is, but I always have to have my glasses clean. They have to be perfect all the time. So I take these little portable eyeglass cleaners with me and defog cleaners wherever I go because it never fails. I'll touch my glasses, and it's just that one little distraction I don't need. So I know it sounds kind of weird, but I like to have clean glasses all the time. So that's like, if I don't have those, I'm like, we're stopping somewhere and getting some. So that's kind of my thing, to make sure. And of course, in addition to that, I have to have my backup gun. That's just kind of my security blanket.
Right. So as we wrap things up, what is it about IDPA that keeps you doing it? You jumped in with both feet. You went from just learning the sport to becoming an SO and SOing a state match almost right out of the gate, to now being the match director of a very popular sanctioned match. What is it about this sport that you love so much that keeps you doing it and keeps you coming back?
Ultimately, it's the people that we shoot with and congregate with. You learn so much from them. You have fun. You laugh at each other. You get grumpy with each other. It's like one big, huge, happy family or grumpy family sometimes, depending on what rule somebody broke. But in the end, it's like Los Lunas Gun Club. That's my main club. Del Norte Gun Club is where we hold the New Mexico Scorcher, and we're kind of like sister clubs, and just the pure fact that everybody wants to help each other out all the time, and whether it's kidding with each other or competing with each other, it's in the end we're all family, and no matter whether or not we agree on the range, most of the time people walk away with stronger than ever relationships and friendships going forward. So for me, it's about the people. It's about putting together great matches that people are like, man, I'm coming back next year. This is just awesome. I love it. It was so fun. It looked simple, but man, it snuck up on me. And it was sneaky hard, and I love that, the challenge of putting together the stages and just the whole event. I mean, it's really a production if you think about it. We're entertainers when it comes to the match director side, and I enjoy that part of it. It's really rewarding in itself.
Well, Ben, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for everything you're doing, and I'm looking forward to meeting you face to face in August at the Atomic City Challenge, and hopefully we'll be able to do a non-DQ DQ afterwards.
Absolutely. Anytime with you, Lloyd. And I appreciate this, and you do some great stuff. I love your shows, and keep it going. And again, I've got my prayers and thoughts with you and your family.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest for coming on the show and our sponsors for making all of this possible. Take a moment, if you would, to check out the website, check out our show notes at unloadpodcast.com. We've got lots of interviews with more amazing guests like the one you heard today. Join our Facebook group at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook for all the latest updates and to connect with other fans of the show. And if you'd like to support the show, we sure would appreciate it. Consider becoming a patron at unloadpodcast.com/extra. I've got some full-length interviews and special content available there exclusively for patrons as well. And if you know somebody or you yourself would make an interesting guest for a future episode of Unload and Show Clear, please contact me at lloyd@unloadpodcast.com or click on the contact page on the website and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in again next time for another episode of Unload and Show Clear.